You're sitting in your seat, the plane starts moving, and something happens in your body that you can't explain and can't stop. Your heart speeds up, your hands grip the armrest, your mind starts running calculations you never asked it to run. About altitude, about metal, about what happens if something goes wrong. And the worst part? You know, rationally, that flying is safe. You've read the statistics. You've told yourself this 100 times, but your brain doesn't care about statistics, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Not how to get over your fear of flying, but why your brain produces it in the first place, and why it makes complete, perfect sense that it does. First, something important. If you're afraid of flying, you are not weak, you are not irrational, and you are definitely not alone. Research suggests that somewhere between 25 and 40% of people experience significant anxiety related to flying. That's not a niche fear. That's 1 in 3 people sitting on your flight. The person reading a book calmly in 14B, they might be managing their 3rd glass of wine since boarding. The woman sleeping in the window seat, she may have taken medication 2 hours before takeoff. Fear of flying is one of the most common anxiety responses on the planet, and when you understand why, it stops feeling like a weakness and starts feeling like something very different. Here's the core problem. Your brain was built for a world that no longer exists. For hundreds of thousands of years, the human threat detection system had one job: keep you alive in an environment full of predators, falling, and sudden death. And it was very good at that job. The amygdala, the brain's alarm center, learned to react instantly to anything that felt dangerous. No deliberation, no checking the statistics. Just threat detected, activate survival mode. Now here's what flying looks like to that ancient system. You are in a metal tube. You cannot escape. You are 35,000 feet above the ground. You have zero control over what happens next. To a brain built for the savannah, this is not a mild inconvenience. This is a catastrophic survival situation. The amygdala doesn't know about Boeing engineering. It doesn't understand turbulence statistics. It just knows. Enclosed space, no exit, no control, extreme height. And it pulls every alarm it has. The fear you feel on a plane is not a malfunction. It is your brain doing its job, just in a context it was never designed for. Here's something fascinating. Studies consistently show that people are far more afraid of situations where they have no control, even when those situations are objectively safer than ones where they do. People are statistically far more likely to die in a car than on a plane, but most people are far more afraid of flying than driving. Why? Because in a car, you're holding the wheel. You feel in control, even if that control is largely an illusion. On a plane, that illusion disappears completely. Someone else is flying. You don't know them. You can't see what they're doing. You can't intervene if something feels wrong. Psychologists call this the illusion of control, and its absence is one of the most powerful triggers of human anxiety. The fear isn't really about the plane. It's about the helplessness. Your brain interprets "I cannot control this" as "I am in danger," because for most of human history, those two things meant exactly the same thing. There's a third mechanism, and it might be the most relatable one. The human brain has a unique ability that almost no other species has. We can vividly simulate futures that haven't happened yet. This is normally a superpower. It lets us plan, prepare, anticipate. But for someone afraid of flying, this ability becomes a torture device. The moment you sit in that seat, your brain doesn't stay in the present. It runs simulations. It shows you worst-case scenarios in vivid detail. The turbulence, the sounds, the outcomes. And here's what makes it worse. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between vividly imagined events and real ones. When you imagine something frightening in enough detail, your amygdala responds as if it's actually happening. Your heart rate rises. Cortisol floods your system. Your body enters a state of real physiological stress. You're not on a crashing plane, but your nervous system doesn't know that. It's responding to a movie your brain is playing, and the screen is right behind your eyes. Here's one more piece of the puzzle. Your brain estimates risk based on how easily it can recall examples of something going wrong. Psychologists call this the availability heuristic, and when it comes to plane crashes, your brain has a lot of material to work with. Every major aviation accident is covered globally, Footage, analysis, survivor stories, documentaries. Your brain has absorbed hundreds of hours of airplane disaster content over your lifetime. Meanwhile, the 100,000 flights that landed safely today, not one of them made the news. So when your brain tries to calculate how dangerous is flying, it doesn't run the actual statistics. It searches its memory for examples, and it finds crashes, emergencies, fires on runways. The data says flying is extraordinarily safe, but the data isn't what your brain is consulting. It's consulting its archive of vivid, emotionally charged memories, and those memories are not representative of reality. One more thing nobody talks about enough. Flying is a genuinely strange sensory experience, even for people without anxiety. The pressure changes, the engine sounds that shift without warning, the turbulence that moves the floor beneath you, the sensation of descent that your body reads as falling. For most passengers, these are background noise. For someone with flight anxiety, every single one of these signals gets routed through the amygdala and tagged as a potential threat. A change in engine pitch? Threat. A bump of turbulence? Threat. The landing gear retracting? Threat. The anxious brain doesn't filter these out. It amplifies them because it's already in high alert mode, scanning for confirmation that something is wrong. This is called hypervigilance, and it's exhausting, not because you're paranoid, but because your threat detection system is working overtime in an environment it was never designed to evaluate. So here's what I want you to take from this. Your fear of flying is not a character flaw. It's not a sign of weakness or irrationality. It is 5 completely understandable psychological mechanisms working together, ancient brain software running in a modern context it was never built for. The amygdala doing its job, the absence of control triggering deep anxiety, an overactive imagination running worst-case simulations, a media landscape that has trained your risk instincts incorrectly, and a sensory environment your nervous system doesn't know how to categorize. None of this is your fault, and knowing this doesn't make the fear disappear overnight, but it does something important. It changes what the fear means. Instead of, "I am weak," it becomes, "My brain is protecting me the only way it knows how." Instead of, "Something is wrong with me," it becomes, "Something very normal is happening inside me." That shift, from shame to understanding, is where every real change begins. Fear of flying is just one of dozens of fears that make complete psychological sense once you understand what's happening beneath the surface. In the next video in this series, we're looking at something even more universal, the fear that appears when the lights go out. Why do so many adults, people who would never admit this out loud, still feel something when they're alone in complete darkness? The answer goes back further than you think. If this video helped you understand yourself, or someone you know, a little better, share it with them. And subscribe, because every week we take another fear, another behavior, another thing about being human that nobody explains, and we show you exactly what's happening inside the brain that creates it.